You can open your eyes now, Purdue fans. They won. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com, live in the Pfizer Forum. And if you don't believe me, see, I have proof. This is my ID. So Purdue wins 81-71 over Texas to advance to next weekend's Sweet 16 and East Regional in Philadelphia to meet, just as you all predicted, St. Peter's. This is your goldenblack.com rap video following that win. Thank you to the Purdue Union Club Hotel and the Boiler Up Bar. I'm going to throw in some sponsors now. We're not on NCAA time anymore, so I don't have to worry about this, I don't think. Thank you to them for their continued support of our little endeavor here. I think that Purdue showed a good deal of basketball maturity today. I don't know if that's always been Purdue's thing. I don't know if all season long they were necessarily dialed in defensively as they needed to be. I think they did get casual at times with big leads. They got loose with the basketball. They just that's not. There's a difference between maturity and basketball maturity, and I think the latter lacked at times when Purdue had struggled. I think tonight was a big step in the right direction. Purdue, this was a big-time game in a big-time environment against a good team that played hard and was really physical, and Purdue did everything it needed to do to win this game, which was a really encouraging sign for those of you who want to believe that Purdue is peaking at the absolute precise moment that it should be peaking, or you want it to be peaking. I thought Purdue took relatively good care of the basketball for the most part. I think defensively they won this game with defense. And I've been telling you for how many weeks now that Purdue is better defensively than they get credit for because their metrics don't reflect it, because when they've struggled, turnovers have been a big part of it, and that's not baked into your whole defensive efficiency metric. They don't take into account how fewer possessions you had because you gave them to the opponent and what that means to your points per 100 minutes on your defense. So I think Purdue's come of age defensively. I'm going to keep saying I don't think they're there yet, but to hold a team to 16 straight missed field goals and scoreless for almost 9 minutes in the NCAA Tournament, a team with grown men here. These are all 20-somethings. This is another semi-pro team like Illinois. All these guys are adults. They're all seniors. Literally all of them. Their whole starting lineup is seniors. To hold those guys scoreless for almost 9 minutes and miss 16 straight shots and get most of the rebounds, Purdue out-rebounded them by a pretty wide margin, that's a big deal. And that's Purdue dominating with defense when their shots weren't going in. The first half, Purdue was they opened 1 of 10 from three-point range, something like that. They buckled down on defense, and they won this game with defense. They won this game with a lot of things, but they won it with defense. And I think that is a really, really good sign for Purdue. You'd like to win it with threes, make it a little easier. But if you can't have the threes, stopping the opponent is a good alternative. And, again, basketball maturity. I thought Purdue played really hard on defense. I thought they were really prepared on defense. They were really energetic on defense. They were really vocal on defense. Again, stuff that you've seen come and go all season long. Tonight, it all fell in place. Purdue was really good defensively. Basketball maturity, there it is. I think that it's really nice to have a Jaden Ivey on your team. They say that guards matter more in March. And I don't really know who they is, but now that I'm saying it, I guess I'm part of they. Guards matter more in March because games get close. Games are really competitive. There come points in times. There come points in time. It is 2:34 in the morning. You'll have to excuse my temporary lack of understanding of the English language. There come points in time during games where you just need a dude to go out and do something. And, there are two kinds of great players, if you ask me. One is a really physically gifted, really talented player, and the other one is a really talented, really physically gifted player who's a damn killer. And the guy Purdue has is a damn killer. He's shown that to Ohio State a couple times. He made that big shot at Wisconsin. That three from just inside the logo, Purdue cleared him out and said, go get a bucket. And he did. Was one of the most clutch shots I think I've seen a Purdue player make in my frame of reference, because Purdue at that point had to have this game. You cannot be up 10 with 2.5 minutes to go and not win this game at that point. And I can only imagine the level of anxiety and the fierceness of the panic attack Purdue fans collectively were experiencing when Purdue is up 10 points with 2.5 minutes to go. Texas hits a 4-point play. Texas hits a couple threes. Suddenly it's a 3-point game, only because Purdue got called for a lane violation that would have made it a 4-point, that took away the chance for it to be a 4-point game. It was all adding up for Purdue here. The whole story was rewriting itself. I think this game serves as validation for you folks that positive things can happen for Purdue. I think a lot of you maybe have come into that belief kicking and screaming at times, but I think that ghosts were exercised in this game. We don't like ghosts around here. I think things unfolding the way they unfolded and what could have happened under a very different set of circumstances, when taken in the context of all of the bad luck Purdue had during the season and how the Eastern bracket is now literally on fire. Kentucky's gone, Baylor's gone, Purdue is the highest seed left. It was that classic moment where everything unfolds before you, and then you get the fear of God put in you by this strange set of circumstances that very easily could have cost you this game in the most bizarre circumstances yet. And Purdue has lost to some pretty bizarre circumstances this season, so that's a mouthful. But I think there was a certain exorcism of a ghost there, of a demon, and perhaps I believe too much in symbolism and storylines and things playing out in the universe balancing itself out, things like that. But for Purdue to get pushed to that brink with that weird stuff that happened and then come back and just score the final 7 points of the game, I think was a huge growth moment for Purdue, but also maybe a little bit of a symbolic moment that maybe this is Purdue's time. The fact that Chris Beard was on the other side of this. You could come into this game looking at this two ways. Hey, Chris Beard is that hurdle that Purdue has to get past because they haven't been able to do it in 2 other NCAA tournaments. So that's why fate has put him here. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too philosophical here. I don't know. It's really late. Or maybe it's the universe's ultimate troll that, hey, everything's lining up for Purdue. Here's Chris Beard to ruin it. As it turned out, maybe Chris Beard was that hurdle along the way, the whole you've got to lose to know how to win kind of thing. I don't know if that really makes any sense, but I've got Aerosmith songs playing in my head right now. But I think some demons were kind of exercised here tonight. We'll obviously see how Purdue plays from here on out, but maybe I'm buying too much into the symbolism stuff here. Marcus Carr being on the other side of this too seems worth mentioning. Maybe not. I don't know. But I think things are lining up for Purdue here. There's no guarantees here, obviously. I don't take St. Peter's lightly because they've beaten 2 teams that they shouldn't have beaten already. If they get past St. Peter's, that Elite 8 game would be no picnic against Carolina or UCLA. But I completely got off track with the whole symbolism, philosophy nonsense. I just yammered about. I was talking about Jaden Ivey before, how it's good to have a star in situations like this, a guy who rises to the occasion in those moments. And I'm a little bit conflicted mentioning him first because Travion Williams brought Purdue to that point. This was a classic all-time Travion Williams game in terms of he carried Purdue in the first half offensively. He gets 22 points for you. He was the counterpunch to what Texas was doing defensively on the perimeter, trapping the ball out of Jaden Ivey's hands, making things really hard on their guards. He is what Purdue didn't have against Chris Beard in Boston when they didn't have Isaac Haas. I'll take to my grave that Purdue would have beaten Texas Tech in the Elite 8 that year or in the Sweet 16 with Isaac Haas. Obviously, there's no way to know. This maybe serves as some measure of validation because Travion Williams was that guy tonight. But just a big-time game by Travion Williams. He didn't really do anything crazy. He had one bad turnover that I can recall. Seemed to really play within himself. It's kind of what you need from him. You know, as consistent as he's been in big moments throughout his career in big games, more so big moments than big games, because it's not always been the full game so much as it's been the last 5-6 minutes of games. He's been capable of so much more from a consistency perspective, on the court, off the court, in his demeanor and the tone he sets for this team. But the one thing you could always count on Trevion Williams to do is when you need a bucket and he's got a favorable matchup, or at least an acceptable one, he will go get you buckets. And that is what he did against Texas today. He was an enormous part of this win for Purdue. On a night when they weren't making threes, I think it is enormously significant for Purdue that they didn't shoot well and they won this game anyway. I think it is enormously significant for Purdue that they held Texas to 16 straight missed field goals. They went on a 20-0 run in the first half. This is not the sort of defense you saw from Purdue, all season long. As I said before, coming of age defensively at the right time. They've been really good in the postseason. They were really good in the Big Ten tournament, I thought. And they were really good in these first 2 NCAA tournament games. They figured it out, I think. You don't want to speak too soon because St. Peter's might come out and score 100 on you on Friday night. Probably not, but you never know. You don't want to speak in absolutes with a team that's been relatively topsy-turvy all season long, as good as they have been. They have been relatively topsy-turvy. But they are coming of age defensively, and that is enormous. If you're good on defense, if you take care of the basketball, anything is possible for this team. Anything is possible for this team. Because those two things were not consistently in place all season long, and what you have when those two things are in place is really freaking good. Jaden Ivey's really freaking good. The post is really good. You can shoot. You're going to shoot better than you shot today, presumably. But just a really big, win for Purdue here. A really good test of their mettle for them to be in that situation there in the last minute and, play championship basketball with the game on the line against a better team than I think people realized it was. When you sit courtside for these things, you realize how hard all of these games are. You realize how intense they are. You realize how physical they are and how hard they are. And this reminded me of the Iowa State game from a few years back. That was a high-level of basketball game, and that was only a second-round game. The Washington game in Portland, those were all second-round games. Villanova, I know that all went Purdue's way, but those are second-round basketball games that you could put that in the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8, that level of game, and it wouldn't be out of place. It's really hard to win these games, I think, and for Purdue to, really come out well in the final 5 minutes of this game, I think speaks enormously to their, basketball maturity, their experience, that they're all of that stuff. I think the substance of their roster really came out today, too. I mentioned Jaden Ivey. I mentioned the big guys. Zach Edey. I didn't mention Zach Edey before, but his greatest attributes today were rebounding and getting fouled. This wasn't a typical Zach Edey game, but he still, just by virtue of getting fouled, he gets his 11 points. But I think I said before the season, I think Purdue has two elite role players on this team, in Ethan Morton and Mason Gillis. And I don't think I've ever been more right than I was today, because Ethan Morton was fantastic in this game. He was a revelation. He's just that guy that you just pop into gaps whenever you need something. He just does it. And when you have that guy and he makes open shots, you really have a hell of a player on your hands. And he did a great job defensively on Marcus Carr in the second half. The last three games, okay, he has guarded Keegan Murray, he has guarded Azar Swain, he has guarded Marcus Carr, and he's done a really good job on all of them. Early in the season, he went from Ron Harper Jr., did a great job on him until Harper pulled some bully ball stuff there at the end. Obviously got the best of him. Then Darion Seabron from NC State, a big NBA-type wing. He's just been kind of a jack of all trades from a defensive perspective. And for him to be doing this as just a second-year player who barely did anything last year because of his circumstances, you're seeing now why Matt Painter all year long, when he wasn't playing, when he was a shell of himself because of the mono to start the year and, kind of everything else, you see now why Painter has been bullish on him all along, that he's going to be a really good college player. And he's becoming a really good college player. He was an absolute key element to this win here tonight, as was Mason Gillis, whose numbers aren't going to reflect it once again, but he made at least two of those consummate Mason Gillis plays where he basically steals back a possession for Purdue, and Purdue scored off at least one of them. Just a tone setter from an effort perspective, a physicality perspective. He's doing a good job on defense. He had Timmy Allen, who was one of the more difficult matchups Purdue had to worry about in this game. 2 points for Timmy Allen today before fouling out. 2 points. That has to reflect positively on Mason Gillis. So, big-time substance from Purdue tonight, from top to bottom on its roster, but also timely shooting. You don't make three-pointers the way you normally make three-pointers in this game, but you make 4 of your 6 in the final 9.5 minutes. Doesn't matter how bad you shoot. When you make the big ones, those are the ones that matter. So, just a big-time win for Purdue. As I don't have to tell you, you watched it. You saw all that went into it. Big-time opportunity for Purdue now. As I mentioned before, the East bracket is in tatters. Purdue's got a great shot, obviously, to get past St. Peter's, and you don't want to take them lightly, but in my experience, when Cinderella gets past that first weekend, that week is a long one. There's a lot of interviews. There's a lot of back patting on campus, and there's a lot of reality to set in. And, one has to think Purdue's going to have a good chance, against St. Peter's. After that, we'll kind of see what happens, but maybe this is Purdue's time. I don't know. I don't want to make any promises here. I don't want to make any predictions, but stuff's lining up here. Purdue's playing really good basketball at the right time. They've figured it out defensively. They seem to be doing a good job taking care of the basketball. Their best players are playing well. They're getting all the calls they didn't get, during Big Ten play. It's a big part of this. And things are looking up. So that's what I got from Milwaukee, the only major American city to have ever elected 3 socialist mayors. Got through the whole week without quoting that scene. I love that scene. It's one of the funniest things in movies, if you ask me. So I'll talk to you guys again from Philadelphia on, I guess, Thursday would be the press conferences. So I'll continue to do day off rap videos as well, because I know some of you are absolute gluttons for punishment. So once again, from Purdue's 81-71 win over Texas here in Milwaukee. This is Brian Neubert from goldenblack.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials, however it is you process our materials. Thanks, everybody. I'm going to go get some much-needed sleep, because you can tell from the bags under my eyes, from the incoherence of my words, that I need some sleep.